Priscilla's point of view.
I stood frozen, my back pressed lightly against the door, breath shallow. How did he know my full name? My fingers fumbled behind me for the doorknob, just in case I needed to bolt. But the man didn't move, he just stood there, arms calmly at his sides, as if appearing out of nowhere was the most natural thing in the world. "Who are you?" I finally managed, my voice quiet and shaky. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, his eyes, pale and stormy, seeming to search beneath my skin like he was looking for something only he could see. Before I could speak again, the door behind me creaked open, then pushed in with force. "Who are you talking to?" Gabriel's deep voice cut through the tense air, sharp and demanding. I spun around instinctively, my gaze locking on his bare chest, muscles sculpted like they'd been carved out of stone, glistening faintly from the steam still clinging to his skin. My throat dried, I swallowed hard, and then my heart thudded violently against my ribcage, again, not from fear this time, but something else entirely, something I wasn't ready to name. Gabriel took a step forward, eyes narrowing slightly. "I asked you a question. Who were you asking who they were?" I shook my head, breath shaky. My voice trailed off as I turned back toward the mirror. Gone. He was gone. No trace of him, not even a shadow, just my reflection, pale and tense and blinking back at me, the bathroom suddenly feeling far colder than it had a moment ago. "Gone?" Gabriel's voice came from behind me, low and cautious. I nodded slowly, eyes still fixed on the mirror, like the man might return at any second. He was just here. A man, gray hair, but not old. He was staring right at me like he knew me. He said my name, both of them. Priscilla Hart. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the steam clinging to the air. Gabriel stepped closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body before I even saw him move in beside me. "No scent," he muttered. "There's no trace of anyone else in here but you and me." He studied the mirror, his eyes narrowing. Was he inside it, or? "He was behind me," I said, voice barely above a whisper. His reflection was clear, just like mine, but when I turned to look, he was gone. Gabriel didn't say anything right away, he just kept staring at the mirror, his jaw tight. Then he finally exhaled, like he was trying to keep himself from jumping to conclusions. "You sure you weren't just tired? Maybe it was a shadow, a trick of the light." "I'm not crazy," I snapped, sharper than I meant to. My heart was still racing, my palms clammy. "I know what I saw. He knew me." Gabriel held up a hand, not in defense but in a silent, "Okay." "All right, I believe you." That surprised me. He didn't press further, didn't question my sanity like I half expected him to. He looked back at the mirror, his tone darkening. He said your full name?" I nodded. Yeah, like he'd known it his whole life. Gabriel turned away, muttering more to himself than to me. "That's twice now." "What do you mean?" He looked back over his shoulder. "You keep drawing things we don't understand. First the stingers. Now this. Ghost, or whatever the hell it was." I wrapped my arms tighter. "So what do I do? Sleep with sage under my pillow?" He almost smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "No, you stay close, let Aurora check you out again, and whatever you do, don't wander off alone." I stared at him, the tension in my shoulders creeping higher with every word he said. "Aurora?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "Who's that?" "The Pack Witch," he replied simply as if that answered everything. "She's the one helping me figure all of this out." I blinked at him, more questions forming than answers. "Wait, witch? As in spells and potions?" "Yes," he said, almost impatiently. "And no, it's more than that." My lips parted to say something, but another word from earlier snagged in my mind. "And what did you mean by stingers?" He looked at me then, really looked, his jaw ticking like he didn't want to say it, but knew he had to. "They're rogues," he said at last. "Or they were. Something's been turning them into these monstrous things. Blackened skin, venomous barbs, faster, deadlier than any rogue I've ever seen. They've been attacking my pack since the day you arrived." He paused, then added darkly, "And they're obsessed with you." I opened my mouth to respond, maybe with denial, maybe with disbelief, but the words jammed in my throat. "Hold on." I lifted a hand, needing air, space, anything. I closed my eyes, took a breath in, and then another out. "You're saying some kind of stinging monster things are obsessed with me?" He nodded once, firmly and without hesitation. "But I've never seen them," I said, frowning. "You're just saying this because You lose your memories after they attack you, he interrupted, his voice flat but certain. Every single time. You black out. You forget. And it keeps happening. I stared at him, my chest tightening, suddenly remembering the emptiness in my head when I tried to recall anything beyond a few days ago. The flashes. The fear. The strange familiarity of everything and everyone I shouldn't know. You're serious, I whispered. He just looked at me, and that look told me everything I needed to know. Deadly serious. Gabriel's gaze didn't waver. So, Aurora has to perform a spell on you, he continued, his voice steady. Something that'll mask whatever it is they're drawn to. Keep them off your trail, at least until we figure out why they keep coming for you. I swallowed, my heart still thudding, but the fear was slowly sharpening into something else. Resolve. Fine, I said, lifting my chin. Let her do it. I crossed my arms, meeting his eyes fully now. And once that's done, then I can get into it my way. All of it. The truth. Your world. My part in it. Gabriel didn't say another word after that. He just gave me a small nod, then turned on his heel, heading out of the room. I followed. The hallways were quieter than I expected for the morning. Dim with soft, natural light filtering through narrow windows. Every turn felt like walking deeper into something I wasn't sure I could come back from. But I kept going, step after step with him. We reached a door, tucked near the end of the east wing. Gabriel didn't knock. He pushed it open like he'd done it 100 times before. Aurora was already waiting. She stood near the center of the room, her long raven hair pulled back into a messy braid, her piercing eyes unreadable as they flicked from Gabriel to me. Gabriel, she greeted smoothly, then gave me a glance that was less welcome and more evaluation. Did you tell her what's going on? I raised a brow, but before Gabriel could respond, I stepped forward and said, I know what's going on. Aurora's lips tugged slightly at the corners, the closest thing to a smile I imagined she gave anyone. Good, she said with a nod, then motioned toward the side room. Follow me. We moved into the adjoining space, smaller, darker, the air thick with the scent of herbs and ash. 2 candles sat on the ground in a symmetrical pattern, one black, one red, both flickering low and steady. Between them was a small black metal censer, thin trails of smoke curling from it like fingers reaching toward the ceiling. I hesitated only briefly before stepping inside. Gabriel was silent behind me, but his presence was solid and grounding. Aurora knelt before the setup and gestured for me to sit opposite her. This won't hurt, she said softly, but it will feel strange. I'm going to mask your presence, the part of you that draws them. It won't be permanent, but it'll be enough. I nodded and sank to my knees. She reached for the censer, whispering words I couldn't understand. Her fingers danced through the smoke, weaving invisible threads into the air. The flame on the red candle flared suddenly, then dimmed. I felt it almost instantly, a tightening around my ribs as the atmosphere had folded over me. The scent of burning sage and something more metallic filled my lungs. My vision blurred at the edges, the room dipping into shadow even though the candles burned on. And then, as quickly as it began, it passed. Aurora sat back, watching me carefully. It's done, she said. I blinked, my heart thudding. That's it, for now. She turned her gaze to Gabriel. We've bought her time, but the rest of this? She looked back at me. You'll need to face it head on. I nodded once. I'm ready. Even if I wasn't, I knew I had to be. Aurora held my gaze for a moment longer, her eyes strangely calm, like she could see more than what was in front of her. Then she nodded once, as if satisfied. You may feel tired, she said. The spell taps into your aura, shifts it, masks it. Give your body time to adjust. I gave a slight nod, rubbing my arms as if trying to ease the weight that still clung to me. I'll be fine. Gabriel stepped closer. If anything feels off, you tell me, immediately. His voice was firm, commanding, but it didn't irritate me like before. Maybe because for once, I could sense it wasn't about control. It was protection. And I didn't have the energy to fight that. Aurora stood, brushing ash from her palms. You should rest. The spell's strongest within the first few hours. I'll reinforce it tomorrow if needed. Gabriel gave her a nod of thanks before placing a hand lightly on my back, guiding me toward the door. I let him. Just this once. But then I stopped at the door and turned back toward Aurora. Something about the way she moved, how she watched everything so carefully, made me pause. If anyone could make sense of what I saw, it had to be her. Since you're a witch, I said slowly, you must know this kind of thing better than anyone. Aurora arched an eyebrow but said nothing. I could feel Gabriel shift beside me, but I kept my eyes on her. This man? I added, glancing sideways at Gabriel. Well? He didn't believe me when I told him. Aurora gave Gabriel a quick look, unreadable, then returned her attention to me. What is it? I stepped forward, hesitant but determined. I know it might sound ridiculous, but I saw someone, a man, in my mirror this morning. Gray hair, stormy eyes, but not old. He wasn't just a reflection either. He was there, staring at me, and then he just disappeared. Aurora's expression didn't change much, but I saw it, just a flicker, a shift in her eyes. She wasn't surprised. Mirrors, she said slowly, aren't always what they seem. Especially not to someone awakening. Awakening? I echoed, frowning. Gabriel tensed beside me. Aurora gave a slow nod. There's a reason creatures are drawn to you, a reason your scent can't be placed. You may not know who you are, Priscilla, but something does. And it's watching. My skin prickled at her words, but before I could react, she turned to Gabriel. Can I speak to her alone for a moment? I raised a brow, confused. Why? Aurora's gaze was steady. It's important. Gabriel looked between us, his jaw tightening slightly. I'll take care of something, he said at last. Aurora nodded once in acknowledgement. As soon as the door clicked shut behind him, the air shifted. Aurora's sharp eyes fixed on me. I thought you might not want him to hear this, she began, her voice soft but clear. How's your relationship with your family? The question hit me like a slap. My heart jolted, pounding like a warning bell in my chest. Why are you asking about my family? I asked, the words escaping through gritted teeth. There's something I want to understand, Aurora said calmly, watching me closely. Your aura, it flickers. Strong and old, blood-tied. I see your father. I don't have a family, I snapped, louder than I intended. Aurora's lips parted slightly as if she was about to say something else, but I didn't let her. I don't have a family, I repeated, firmer now, fire creeping up my throat. So whatever it is you think you see, it's not real. Before she could utter another word, I turned sharply and stormed out, slamming the door behind me. The sound echoed down the hallway, but I didn't care. I leaned back against the door, chest heaving, the weight of it all crashing down on me. My knees buckled, and I slid halfway down, gripping the edges of my sleeves with trembling fingers. I waited until my breathing slowed, until the burn in my chest dulled just enough to stand. Then I turned, walking in the same direction we came from, slow, aimless steps that eventually led me back to the elevator. I pressed the button without thinking, my mind tangled with Aurora's words. Your father? My hand instinctively clutched at my chest as a sudden pain stabbed through it, sharp and unbearable. My knees wobbled. I stumbled back against the elevator wall, my eyes watering with tears I didn't want to shed. Please, stop, I whispered, my voice cracking, barely audible. A sob broke from me. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open and then slowly closing again as it began to descend. I slid down the wall, burying my face in my knees, hugging them tight as if I could hold myself together that way. I don't know how long I stayed like that. The elevator chimed again, signaling another stop, and I didn't move. Then a soft young voice cut through the quiet. Are you hurt? I lifted my head slowly, blinking through the blur of tears. A little girl stood in the doorway, wide, curious eyes looking down at me. She had caramel skin, big brown eyes full of concern, and her hair was tied up into two puffy afro buns with bright pink ribbons. Her eyes suddenly widened. Luna? I scrambled up to my feet a little too fast, forcing a smile on my face like flipping a switch. Hey! Beautiful, I said, brushing at my face. What are you doing here alone? Are you getting in? The girl nodded shyly and stepped into the elevator. Where are you heading to, Luna? I looked at the elevator panel. So many buttons, so many numbers and letters I didn't understand. I trailed off and glanced down at her. Where are you going? To have breakfast, she said with a bright smile. I let out a small, awkward laugh. Yeah, me too, heading there. She nodded and reached out, pressing a small button near the bottom corner that read Dining Wing in tiny engraved letters. A beat of silence passed before she turned to look up at me again. Were you crying, Luna? I blinked, startled, my smile faltering. I laughed awkwardly, brushing my cheek as if that could erase the evidence. No, of course not. I wasn't crying. The little girl tilted her head and gave me a look far too knowing for her age. You were, Luna. I can smell your tears. I arched a brow. Of course you can. You're a wolf. Nothing leaves you unnoticed, huh? She nodded like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I crouched down to her level, softening my voice. What's your name? Naya, she said with a little smile. Well, Naya, I began, you were right. I was crying, because it's my first day in this giant house and being Luna is... I paused, breathing out, overwhelming, so I cried, just a little. But that's between you and me, okay? No one else can know, not even your alpha. Naya's eyes went round. Not even my mama? Not even her, she nodded, serious now. All right, I held out my pinky. Promise? Naya hooked her small pinky around mine. I promise. Just then, the elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Standing right there was a glowing pregnant woman with the same warm brown skin and kind eyes as Naya. Her smile was gentle, curious as her gaze shifted from her daughter to me. Did I interrupt something? She asked playfully. I stood quickly, dusting off my knees with a smile. Not at all. We were just getting to know each other. Naya skipped to her mother's side, grabbing her hand. I'm hungry, Mama. Her mom gave her a loving glance and began leading her toward the dining room. As they walked away, Naya turned her head back and called, Luna, are you coming? I smiled and stepped out of the elevator. Right behind you. The moment I stepped into the dining wing, I felt like I'd walked into something out of a fantasy novel. The room was massive, so big I couldn't see the end of it. It stretched wide and far, long enough to hold what felt like 100 people with ease. Long oak tables lined either side of the space like endless rivers of polished wood, with smaller round tables dotted around the edges, and a separate section off to the left decorated in brighter colors, lower chairs, and playful wolf cub motifs on the walls. A children's area. The ceiling arched high above us, with rustic chandeliers made of antlers and twinkling fairy lights strung across wooden beams. Warm sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting a soft glow over everything. The scent of fresh bread, herbs, roasted meat, and berries filled the air, inviting and comforting. As Naya and her mother made their way toward one of the long tables, heads started to turn. Pack members, adults, elders, teens, even children from the play area. Some gave me soft, respectful smiles. Others lit up with excitement, nodding, whispering to each other, some even offering warm waves. A few stepped forward to greet me. It's so good to finally have you here, Luna. Welcome. We're so happy you came to eat with us. I'm Mira. If you ever need anything, just ask. I blinked, overwhelmed by the soft flood of attention and kindness. People smiled at me like I belonged, like they wanted me here. No mocking, no sneers, no glares from across the room, no hatred. Just warmth. Genuine warmth. I felt my throat tighten, my chest rising with a strange weight that wasn't heavy in the painful way I was used to. It was something else entirely. My fingers twitched by my sides, wanting to cling to that feeling, even though it felt so unfamiliar, so foreign to the walls I'd always held up. People were kind here. They were happy to see me. Me, a girl who had never received a real smile from strangers. A girl who had been scorned and rejected so often that she built a fortress around her heart just to survive. And now, here they were, smiling, welcoming, embracing me into something I never thought I'd be a part of, family, pack. It hit me so suddenly that I had to force a breath out, grounding myself before the tears could return. But these weren't tears of pain. For the first time in a long time, they were tears from something I wasn't sure I'd ever really felt before. Hope.
Gabriel's point of view.
I ran. Fast and hard, my paws tearing through the damp earth, claws gripping the soil as I pushed deeper into the woods. The trees blurred past me, their trunks familiar sentinels in a world that had always felt more like home than any room built of stone and brick. The wind rushed against my fur, sharp and cold, clearing the fog that had built in my head after too many tense days and sleepless nights. The forest was silent, save for the sounds of my breathing and the rhythm of my movement, the thud of paws against soil, the swish of leaves brushing against my flanks. But to me, it wasn't quiet. It was alive. The scents, the subtle shifts in temperature, the way the ground dipped and rose with each stride. I felt it all. Every breath of moss, bark and damp leaves grounded me. Every crack of a branch or distant rustle pulled me deeper into that raw, wild place I hadn't been able to reach in days. This was where I shed everything: the pressure of being alpha, the weight of secrets piling up, the growing worry about Priscilla. Out here in this form, I wasn't burdened by questions or politics or expectations. I was just me, flesh and fur, instinct and strength, born of the moon. I leapt over a fallen log, landing smoothly before darting into a clearing, where the sun spilt in patches across the forest floor. I let out a low growl of satisfaction, my breath nisting into the chilled air. Everything inside me had been wound tight since she showed up, tighter still after every strange encounter, the stingers, the visions, the way her presence seemed to stir the pack in ways even I couldn't explain. Priscilla Hart. She was a storm I couldn't read, a name whispered in strange omens, and yet she made the air in my lungs feel fuller when she was near. She made my instincts burn. She made me want to protect, no, claim, something I didn't yet understand. I slowed finally near the river, letting my body shift back. Muscles realigned, bones cracked, fur receded, and in a breath of pain and magic, I was standing barefoot, human once more. The cold biting against my sweat-slicked skin. I looked down into the water, clear, rushing, alive, and whispered to my reflection, "What are you really, Priscilla?" Because I was starting to think even she didn't know the answer. And that scared me more than anything. I was still staring at my reflection when the wind shifted. A scent cut through the air like a blade, sharp, unfamiliar, and wrong, faintly metallic, off. I didn't hesitate. My body tensed, eyes scanning the shadows beyond the tree line. The scent grew stronger, closer. I straightened, shoulders squared, voice cutting through the silence like a command etched into stone. "Show yourself." For a heartbeat, there was nothing. Then, the faintest rustle of brush. Leaves trembled. A dark shape emerged between the trees, slow, cautious. A rogue, smaller than me, its ribs visible beneath a matted coat, tail tucked low. I growled, not in challenge but warning. It whimpered. Then the link came, a desperate voice, threaded with fear. "Please, don't hurt me." The desperation in his voice slowed my breath. "What are you doing in my territory?" I demanded, the words sharp inside his head. The rogue shifted until a man stood before me. Young, maybe 22. Gaunt, pale. A fresh wound bled sluggishly at his side, raw and ugly. But what made my stomach twist was the way the skin around it was already changing, darkening, webbing out like black veins crawling beneath the surface. My breath hitched. The stingers. His skin. It was mutating. "Shit," I muttered, stepping forward. Eyes narrowing. "You're turning." The man's face crumpled, eyes glossy as he nodded. "I know." "How long ago?" 2 days, he rasped. "I was with my mate. We were trying to cross neutral land, but something found us. I fought it off. I thought I won. But then this." He touched the bite at his side, flinching. "It burns, all the time. It's inside me, changing me." He looked up at me with eyes full of terror, and something else. Hope. "I don't want to turn," he said, voice cracking. "I have a mate. She's pregnant. She's due in a few days. I can't." His voice broke. "I can't lose myself. I can't become that." My jaw clenched. My pack had already lost 8 members to these goddamn things. And now, they were spreading their infection to whoever they found. "You were bitten?" I asked. He nodded. The implications made my blood run cold. "Where's your mate?" "She's hiding," he said. "Safe, for now." I didn't want to risk going back to her after this. I didn't want her to see me, changing. He dropped to his knees then, the shift of his bones and breath making it seem like the pain was already eating through him. "Please, Alpha. I don't know where else to go." I stared at him. Not just a rogue, a soon-to-be father, and a man caught in the middle of a nightmare we didn't yet understand. I stood over him, watching the infection creep deeper into his flesh, his body slowly changing color like smoke bleeding beneath the skin. My instincts growled low in my chest. He was running out of time, but so was I. Too many unknowns, too many risks, and with Priscilla, so new, so vulnerable, and already marked by whatever force had started this nightmare, I couldn't afford to bring danger any closer to my pack. "I can't take you in," I said, my voice rough and final. "You're a rogue, bitten. That makes you a threat." The man didn't fight it. He only nodded, eyes dim with exhaustion. "Acceptance. I understand. But your mate," I paused, jaw clenching. "If she's innocent in this, I'll help her. I can take her in." He looked up slowly. A flicker of life sparked in his eyes again. "That would be enough, Alpha Gabriel." I nodded once. "Where is she?" He started to speak, to describe the location. "Don't tell me," I interrupted. "Lead me there. Shift. Now." He obeyed without hesitation. I shifted alongside him, my wolf stretching out with a sharp jolt of heat and muscle. Then we sprinted through the trees, the wind howling past us, roots and leaves tearing beneath our paws. The forest blurred around me, but I kept focus, locked on the rogue scent and the urgency crawling beneath my skin. After a few miles, the trees thickened and the scent changed. It was faint but undeniable. Fear, pain, and the subtle sweetness of someone carrying life. We stopped near a jagged rock formation cloaked in branches and moss. A hidden alcove. The perfect place to hide if you were desperate and terrified. I shifted back as I stepped closer. "She's in there?" I asked. He nodded. "Keheret." He hesitated, then moved toward the opening. His voice cracked slightly when he spoke. "Lyra. It's me. Come out, baby. It's safe. You're okay." For a long moment, nothing. Then a shuffling sound, a rustle of branches. She emerged slowly, her thin hand wrapped protectively around her swollen belly. Her clothes hung off her like curtains, her cheeks sunken, eyes heavy with fatigue. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. But she was still standing. Barely. Her hand flew to her mouth when she saw him, then dropped to cradle her stomach. "Kai," she breathed, stumbling toward him. "Stop," I said sharply, holding out a hand to halt her. She froze mid-step, her eyes wide, confused. I stepped between them. "He's bitten," I told her, my voice calm but firm. Then I turned to Kai. "I'll take her to the pack house. She'll be safe there, fed, monitored. As for you, you stay here." His eyes snapped up. "Alpha, I didn't say I was abandoning you," I cut in. "I'll decide what to do with you once she's safe, but I need to know exactly where to find you. If you move, even an inch, it's over." He nodded quickly, relief and fear warring in his expression. "I'll stay. Thank you, Alpha Gabriel, thank you." I gave a curt nod, shifted to my wolf form, and then turned to the Lyra. "Climb on." She hesitated, then glanced at Kai, who gave her a faint smile and a nod. She came forward carefully and climbed onto my back, arms wrapping around my neck with surprising strength. I waited until I felt her steady herself before sprinting back towards the pack house. By the time we reached the edge of the pack house, Christine was already waiting, alerted by my mind link. She stood near the entrance. "Christine," I said, not bothering with greetings. "She's due any day, dehydrated, likely malnourished. Get her into the infirmary and keep her monitored. She's a rogue's mate, but she hasn't been bitten. She's not a threat." Christine's expression softened when she saw the Lyra, and she nodded without hesitation. "Of course, Alpha. I'll take care of her. Keep me updated," I said as Christine gently took Lyra's arm and led her inside. I didn't wait to see them go. My thoughts were already ahead, on Aurora. I turned on my heel and strode into the pack house, heading straight for her quarters, tension thrumming through every step like a fuse ready to ignite. I found Aurora exactly where I expected, seated cross-legged on the floor of her dim room, her concentration absolute. Herbs, vials, dried roots, and thick old books were scattered before her in a careful pattern. Smoke curled from a copper bowl, and glowing sigils hovered faintly in the air above her head. "Aurora," I said, stepping into the room. She didn't look up. "We need to talk," I added firmer. She finally glanced at me, expression unreadable. "I'm all ears." "I found a bitten rogue in the woods," I said, getting right to the point. But he was still in his right mind. Aurora paused, blinked, and turned fully toward me. "So what do you want me to do with that information?" she said dryly. "Gabriel, I have no control over those creatures. They've never responded to my spells. Not even a flinch. So unless you want me to throw sage and prayers at them? I know, I cut in, raking a hand through my hair. I'm not asking you to contain them. I was thinking, the first time Henry was bitten, Priscilla healed him, without killing him, and he had already turned by then. Aurora's eyes narrowed, calculating. And I want to see if she can do it again. I want to observe everything, every move she makes, every flicker of magic. If we can understand what it is she's doing, then maybe we can finally figure out what she really is. Aurora stood slowly, arms folding across her chest as she considered it. That makes sense, she admitted. But it's risky. You're putting her near a rogue again, one who's in transition. I know, my voice came low, but I'm not going to let anything touch her. I'll have Austin and 2 other members running backup. I'm not asking for a miracle. I just need a chance to figure this out before it gets out of hand and I lose more of my pack members. She studied me for a long moment. Then, with a small shrug, she said, "She's your mate. It'll be your responsibility if it kills her." "It won't." Aurora snorted faintly. "Put on some pants then, Alpha. Let's go." I glanced down at myself and shrugged. "Why bother? I'll have to shift again." I turned, heading for the door. "Follow me out, right behind you," she muttered, gathering her things. As I stepped outside, I mind-linked Evelyn. "Get Priscilla out here. I need her." "Right away," Evelyn responded. Outside, Austin was already waiting with 2 others, Lucas and Jonah, both fast, both deadly. Aurora stepped out behind me just as Evelyn emerged from the entrance, with Priscilla trailing beside her. Priscilla's gaze met mine for half a second, then instantly turned away, heat crawling up her face. "Seriously?" she mumbled, eyes fixed on the ground. "Would it kill you to wear some clothes?" I smirked and shifted into my wolf form, ignoring her complaints. Beside me, Austin and the others shifted too, their fur bristling with anticipation. "Priscilla," I mind-linked to her. "Hop on. I need your help with something." She froze like a deer caught in headlights, eyeing me, this massive beast of a wolf, easily 3 times her size. She hesitated once, twice, then a 3rd time, chewing her lip. Finally, slowly, she stepped forward, her movements cautious and unsure. I lowered myself to the ground to make it easier for her. She swung a leg over me, settling awkwardly on my back, her hands trembling as they hovered above my fur. "Wrap your arms around my neck," I told her gently. "You don't want to slip and fall." She did, finally sliding her arms around me. Her touch was hesitant, light at first, then tightened, warm and soft, sinking into my thick coat. I felt her mumble something under her breath. Something that made my chest tighten. Soft, warm. Behind me, Aurora climbed onto Austin's wolf, her hair tucked under a hooded jacket, supplies slung in a pouch across her back. "Let's move," I ordered. As we sprinted through the forest, the rhythm of paws pounding the earth echoed through the trees like war drums. The wind sliced past us in wild streaks, leaves dancing in our wake. "Where are we going?" Priscilla asked behind me, her voice laced with tension as her arms tightened slightly around my neck. "What did you mean? You need me," I answered through the mind link. "It's about what I told you this morning. The stinging creatures." "What about them?" "You have powers, Priscilla. Something hidden. You can either heal them or kill them. You did it with Henry, remember? I found a rogue this morning, bitten, but not turned. Not fully. He's still in his right mind, but not for long. He has a pregnant mate. She's due in days. He begged for help. I don't know how to save him, but you might." "I don't know how to heal anyone, Gabriel," she shot back, her thoughts laced with panic and confusion. "You said I attract them. You said they're dangerous. And now you're just offering me to one? I won't let him touch you." She went quiet after that. Her mind was still in motion. I could feel it through the thread of her energy, wrapped around me like an echo. After a few minutes, we reached the clearing. A patch of trees tangled with underbrush, barely noticeable if you didn't know what you were looking for. I crouched low so she could slide off. She staggered when her feet hit the ground, a little unsteady, and I shifted back into human form immediately, catching her arms to steady her in place. "I got you," I murmured. Aurora stepped down from Austin's wolf, pulling her hood back. "Where's the thing?" she asked, already pulling something from her satchel. Before I could answer, A low growl rumbled from the trees. Kai emerged, shoulders hunched, a sickly snarl curling from his lips. The bite mark on his side had spread. Veins like thick black roots traced up his ribs, and the stench of decay clung to him like rot. I instinctively stepped in front of Priscilla, shielding her with my body as his eyes locked on her, wild and flickering, and then, his gaze shifted. Confusion, then awe, then hunger, but not the kind of hunger wolves knew. Something older, deeper. His nostrils flared. He leaned forward slightly, like he was trying to get closer to her scent, closer to her light. And his eyes, gods, his eyes dilated, like he was looking at salvation, or a feast. That was when I knew. Whatever it was inside her, it drew them in like moths to a flame. "Step away, Gabriel," Aurora said, her voice flat. I didn't move immediately. I didn't like the way he was looking at her. "Gabriel." After a long beat, I stepped to the side, but only barely. My muscles were cold like springs, ready. The rogue launched forward the second she was exposed. "Priscilla!" I yelled, already moving. Her eyes widened, frozen in place, terror blooming like a scream trapped in her chest. But just before his claws reached her, boom, an invisible wave of force blasted outward with a sharp crack, like lightning tearing the air. The rogue flew backwards through the air and slammed into a tree with bone-snapping force. The air sizzled where the shield had flared to life. Even I staggered back a step. She exhaled and stepped closer, her voice lower now, laced with something that almost sounded like fear. "I saw light," she said slowly. "Not a metaphor, not a vibe. Light, Gabriel." It burst from inside her, but not like power, like memory, like something old woke up. When that rogue lunged, it was like she didn't even move. The force that threw him, it didn't come from her. It came through her. Like she's a vessel, a channel. A channel for what? I asked, my voice like gravel. Aurora shook her head. "I don't know, but it wasn't just a shield. It healed him. Like it reversed the curse. No spell I've ever seen could have done that. And definitely not anything from me. That was her, Gabriel, or whatever's inside her." I looked back at Priscilla, lying still, but somehow radiating that same quiet hum. Like the air around her still remembered what she'd done. Just as Aurora's words hung between us, the air in the room shifted. A faint glow, subtle at first, began to pulse beneath Priscilla's back, seeping through the couch like moonlight breaking through storm clouds. My breath caught. "Aurora." "I see it," she murmured, taking a step closer. Then it happened. Priscilla rose. Her body lifted off the couch slowly, unnaturally, like she was being pulled upward the invisible strings. Her arms dangled at her sides, her head tilted slightly back, eyes still closed. She wasn't awake. She was moving, but she wasn't awake. Both Aurora and I stumbled back, instinctively. My heart slammed against my ribs as I caught a glimpse of the glow intensifying beneath her. It licked the air like a silent flame. "What the hell is happening?" I demanded, my voice sharp. "I don't know." Before Aurora could finish, the change struck. Her hair, as dark and soft as midnight just moments ago, turned silver. Not white, silver, like threads of starlight flowing from her scalp, cascading down in an endless shimmer. Even her brows and lashes shifted color, brushed over with that same metallic hue, like something ancient had just claimed her body. My chest tightened. "What in the fucking hell is happening?" I growled, every protective instinct surging like wildfire. Aurora stood frozen beside me, eyes wide. "Gabriel." The light around Priscilla pulsed once more, then vanished in an instant. Her body dropped. I lunged forward to catch her, but the moment my hands touched her skin, snap, a jolt of electricity shot through me like 1,000 volts ripping straight through my chest. "Fuck," I roared, staggering back. My entire arm convulsed. Sparks danced across my fingertips, as if her skin had become lightning itself. I shook out my hand, trying to regain control of the nerves that had suddenly gone numb. "What was that?" I hissed, eyes wide on her. Aurora didn't answer. I turned to her and realized she didn't have an answer. She looked just as stunned. Her lips parted, as though a woad had tried to escape, but no sound came. "She's radiating energy," she finally whispered. No shit.